Hello, and you are very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast, brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout the series I'm speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. So today in the podcast studio, I'm joined by David Wilson, Managing Director of the beautiful Montalto Estate. David, welcome to the podcast studio. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well, thank you.
Well, I'm really excited about getting stuck into our chat today. But before we begin, I'm going to give just a little background on David and his family business. So David is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants with Big Four experience in both Dublin and Belfast. Coming from a family with two previous generations of business success in Northern Ireland, it was always David's intention to be his own boss. Well, that opportunity arose in 2009 when the Wilson family recognised a demand for an exclusive luxury venue for business and private purposes. So luckily they could utilise their former family home, Montalto House, and it opened as a private hire venue in 2010. In 2012, the business expanded when the carriage rooms at Montalto was launched. Continuing to aim at the top end of the market, this venue is consistently shortlisted in the UK and Ireland wedding publications and was crowned Best Wedding Venue UK by Hudson's Guide in 2014. So David, I've never actually been, but I have seen absolutely stunning photographs. Was this your family home?
Yes, it was. My parents bought the estate in 1994, and it really was a bit of a shell actually when they bought it. There was a significant amount of work required to get it in a state that we could actually live in it. And then over maybe the next 10 years that we were living in it, we continued to develop it as our home, fit it out, decorate it, and it's now that's now the where we are today.
And it's in Ballynahinch.
It's in just outside of Ballynahinch, yes. There's not much else in Ballynahinch, really, apart from queues of traffic on their way to Newcastle.
It's a beautiful part of the world. Yes,
it is absolutely. County Down is a spectacular part of the world, and I think we're very fortunate that the people of Ballynahinch have really taken us. Come behind us and welcomed the opening of the estate on their doorstep. It makes a lovely added bonus for them to be able to utilise.
Well, absolutely. Embrace this jewel that they now have in their crown. And the house itself, you said your parents, when they took it on, it was a bit of a shell, but it dates back to the 1600s. Do you want to give us a bit of a history of the place? Because it's very interesting.
Absolutely. We might be here all day. Once I get started on the history, it's very difficult to stop. The house. There's been a house on that site from the 1600s. Originally, this part of County Down was under the McCartan clan, and their homestead was on this site. Like most Irish clans, they didn't get on terribly well with the English, and Patrick McCartan was ultimately arrested and executed for treason, and his land was sold off, and the area around where Montalto is, effectively Ballynahinch, was sold to the Rawdon family, and their family home at that time was Moira Domain. They lived in Moira. Moira ultimately burnt down, and so they set about building a house in Ballynahinch, originally described when it was first built in the mid-1700s as a modest two-storey dwelling.
Slightly, yes, modest is definitely, have a little look, Google it. If you haven't seen Montalto, it's absolutely stunning. What was it like to live there once your parents had sort of restored it?
It was. Unfortunately, I didn't live there for very long. I was at the age where I was just finishing school, and then I moved out to go to university. When I talked to my younger brother in particular, he was only 4 when my parents bought the house, so he did grow up there.
So it's like Brideshead Revisited.
He had a ball. He during the school holidays he disappeared out first thing in the morning and wasn't seen again until dark. He had an absolute ball growing up on the estate.
Yeah, and the estate, I mean, it's so vast as well, isn't it? And all the nature and the trails and the water. Beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's the estate amounts to about 400 acres now. It was substantially bigger in the past, but now it's about 400 acres. The most of which is agricultural land, but there's about 100 acres of woodlands, which in 2018 we put trails and paths through those. There's about 25 acres of gardens, which we have created walkways through those as well. So there's quite a substantial area.
It's a big decision, though, to move from, having a beautiful family home to then opening it up to the public. So where did that come about, or why did that come about?
Really, we weren't living in the house at that stage. My parents had moved out as well. And the house was sitting there very underutilized. We maybe used it during school holidays, etc. But it was very underutilized. We had gardening staff and house staff, and really we felt that the house needed to be used. The heat needed to be on, the lights needed to be on, and people needed to be in it. So it didn't go downhill again. So rather than sell it, we decided we were going to turn it into a business.
And you obviously had the money background. You trained as an accountant with your Big Four experience, but did you know immediately this is going to be what I'm going to do now?
Yes, I think I did. I had previous experience. I'd left the accountancy behind. I had started out as a finance manager and then ended up as effectively a managing director in another company. And this opportunity arose, or certainly the discussions we were having to do it, and I felt that was the right time to move away from what I was doing and join the family business. And ultimately the most important thing about our business is the natural assets of the estate.
Yeah.
We can't take away from those. So all we have to do is look after them
which is not cheap, because I'm sure it takes an awful lot of work to keep the grounds and keep the house in its beautiful state.
It does. We have a very good teams of people right around the estate, whether that's gardening, whether it's front of house, whether it's housekeeping, etc. And we always, even when we weren't living in it, even when it wasn't being used, it was always maintained to the level that as if we were living in it. So, and it's easier to do that than maybe let it go for a few weeks or a few months and trying to recover that. So in many ways, opening the business, utilising the house was beneficial. It was beneficial to the house and made the upkeep of it actually easier.
So tell me then, at the time of recording, it is basically coming into wedding season. It's the end of April right now, so who knows when people are listening or tuning into this episode. But if there's anybody who hasn't picked their wedding venue, why should they consider Montalto?
Oh dear. Well, the one thing about Northern Ireland now, it has an abundance of very, very beautiful wedding venues. We're very blessed, and we are just one of those. We have a a historic 18th century barn that we have developed and extended to make it a purpose-built wedding venue. We have our bar, we have our dance floor, we have our banquet hall, we have our conservatory / orangery, we have our wall garden, and they all form part of the wedding venue. There's only one wedding a day. Our wedding team, our events team, work with the clients from the beginning to the end, from planning to actual delivery. So they're the ones that are there on the day as well. And so we like to think that you're very well looked after on your wedding day.
Well, the testimonials on the website basically show that you're doing a very good job in that regard. Does the wedding party stay at the estate? They
can do. We have the option of Montalto House. Montalto House has 9 double bedrooms available, and we do offer that as an addition to the wedding party. It is, because it's so few bedrooms, it is aimed at the 2 immediate families rather than all of the guests. So it doesn't necessarily suit everybody, but we have quite a number of people actually take that up and do stay for the night before or the night after, or maybe even both.
Well, you are award winning, and as I said in the introduction, you were crowned Best Wedding Venue UK by Hudson's Guide in 2014. Fast forward a few years after that, though, when we were hit by the pandemic and weddings, oh my goodness, what was going through your mind when you heard about the first lockdown?
An awful lot.
I've got a bleep button.
Yeah, weddings. I think weddings were the one thing that was really, really badly hit. And for a very long time, there actually wasn't any light at the end of the tunnel. We were affected in other ways. Our cafe, which was open at that stage, was closed, but there was a lot of effort being made and to get hospitality businesses reopened, be they bars, restaurants, cafes. But weddings was one thing where really it was put on the back burner, and for a long time we weren't able to do weddings. But the sort of longer term downside of that as well was that the people were very reluctant to come back and actually host a wedding or have a wedding or even attend a wedding. Even after they were allowed to, there was a certain amount of people that immediately they were allowed, they wanted their wedding, and that was great. But there was also a reluctance or a fear that probably took 12 to 18 months.
Really? So the fallout went on that
long?
Yeah,
it really did. The people were
cautious, nervous.
They were cautious. And I suppose really this year, with 2022 and 2023 are probably the first years where we can say that we were back to similar numbers of weddings than we were beforehand.
There you go. I thought that you would have had this huge bounce and everybody would have been back and it would have been even busier, but no.
No, not really.
Not at that level.
Not really, no.
Okay, and what about the staff, getting the staff to come back too? I mean, we hear so much in hospitality industries about not being able to retain people, that people left during that time. How has it been for you?
Thankfully, we were not terribly badly affected by that. We did lose some staff. We were in the position where we furloughed quite a number of our staff, but we had to maintain the employment of others. The gardening team, for example, I think 3/4 of them remained on site. We couldn't let the gardens go downhill, or they would never have recovered. So they remained on site. The hospitality staff were put on furlough, and there was a small percentage that maybe saw a better life outside of hospitality and didn't come back. But I certainly would agree that even now that the number of people in the hospitality industry is greatly reduced, and that is definitely the biggest thing that we are facing is getting new staff.
So if there's anyone listening to this that might consider it, are you looking for people right now? And
absolutely,
yes, always,
yes,
yes,
always.
And would that be full time or part time, or how does it work?
A combination of everything. We are looking for full time, fairly senior staff in the kitchens. We are always looking for, whether they are part time or full time, front of house staff. And coming up to the summer, we would try and build up a bank of casual staff as well, that whether they maybe work in our bar or work in the cafe, or just help out in the garden. Coming up this time of year, we would always be looking to build up the casual staff as well.
But presumably you don't want just anyone, you want someone who's going to deliver excellent customer service. How important is that to you?
Well, customer service is very important, and it's something that actually has changed. I certainly believe customer service has changed from pre-COVID times, and the expectation of the customer has changed.
Really? In what way?
I definitely think the customer is more demanding now. I definitely do think they're more demanding than I think they missed being able to go out
and be treated and looked after.
Yes.
But as a person who just frequents certain places, it does tend to feel like you're not getting attended to just the way that you did before.
I don't actually doubt that either. Mm-hmm. There is definitely
to be fewer people with less time to give you that.
There's fewer staff. There's definitely fewer people who see hospitality as a career. That's whether that be in the kitchen or whether that be public facing. There's definitely fewer people who see that as a long term or career for the rest of their lives. There's a lot of people who are in it for the summer, for a period of time to earn a few pounds, and it's trying to develop those people as quickly as possible into people that care the same way as a career-driven person does.
And how do you go about doing that?
Hopefully, we do.
Yes.
I think the it's easy to say, and hopefully my staff would back me up, but you try and look after your staff. Ultimately, they are the face of your business on the ground with everybody that they're interacting with, and you train them, you look after them, and you support them, and hopefully that will then be reciprocated when they're dealing with the public.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business law practice located in the heart of Newry City. We provide legal advice and representation to individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries on an assortment of legal matters which can affect a business, such as corporate, commercial, employment, dispute resolution, regulatory and compliance. We focus on providing legally sound, commercial and practical advice to our clients. To get in touch, contact 028 30 26 2200 or visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk to find out more about the firm and our services.
What would you consider to be the biggest challenge in all of the work that you do? Is it people?
As a business, in relation to our business, one of the biggest problems that we have is we have grown from a relatively small venue hire business to now having a venue hire business, but also being a visitor attraction, which has, we would have approximately 100,000 visitors a year, and we grew very, very quickly in order to meet those the requirements of that, and I suppose one of the biggest things that myself and the senior management team have to do is integrate the various business units, if you like. They're all very good at looking after their own little bit, but the maybe looking at the bigger picture isn't necessarily on their radar. They as much. So that's from a operations point of view. That's a challenge for us. As an industry, staffing is without doubt still there, still a problem, and I suppose the cost of living crisis, while it hasn't hit yet, but the reality is what we do is a luxury. It's a luxury for the vast majority of people. And there will come a time when they won't have as much money to spend, or they're not as willing to spend money on a luxury, and so we might be the thing to miss out, and equally as a business, the rise in costs for us.
I was going to say the energy crisis.
Energy is just one element of it. Food has gone up 100%. Really in the last sort of 6 to 8 months.
And have you had to pass it on to the customer then?
We have in small amounts. We don't pass everything on. We just can't. You wouldn't be able to. But we have put sort of small percentages on our food and drink. In April, we increased our ticket price for the first time since we opened by about between 8 and 10% for that as well. So
it's been such a disruptive decade, hasn't it? I mean,
it really
if anything,
has.
When you're thinking about the future, you just have to expect shocks.
Yes. Well, that's nearly now what's going to happen
next?
this year. But even, for example, the minimum wage increase this year was 10%, and that's absolutely fine for those that are on minimum wage. But then the people who aren't on minimum wage are asking the question now, where's my 10%? And if you raise everybody 10%, then there's quite a lot of your profit is gone.
Does that keep you awake at night?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because we have a very loyal and a very our customer base is excellent. They support us a lot. Our staff are excellent. They really are. They understand what's happening. They work very hard to make sure the business succeeds. And we're fortunate. If each of our business units were standalone, then yes, I probably wouldn't sleep very much. But the fact that they all work together,
and it's not just one thing.
Exactly.
It's not just solely relying on the weddings. It's not just, and the fact that you're opening up the venue much more and having these public days as well. That's very exciting.
Oh, absolutely. Our sort of main customer group is definitely families, so school holidays are a big time for us, and whether that's a one-off such as the coronation in a couple of weeks or Easter, people are dying for for things for their kids to do. So if we can provide that, then it's absolutely brilliant.
So there's lots to do for the kiddies, and just run and play and get off the phones and the screens.
Yes, well, our tagline is get back to nature, and we created a play park down in our woods, which is it's an enormous play park. A lot of walkways through the trees, and climbing towers, but it's all very nature based. The joy on the kids' faces when they're running down to that it's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
What's the biggest lesson you think you've learned, David, from any mistake that you might have made, which will involve telling about the mistake too, I suppose?
Do you know what? I don't worry about making mistakes.
Good. I'm being very negative in my line of questioning here today.
We make mistakes all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do, our staff do, and if you are, again, we're very fortunate in that I do have a senior management team around me that if we're making a decision that is significant, we'll talk about it. We get the pros and the cons and the positives and the negatives are discussed, and we make that decision then based on the knowledge that we have. And if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. I don't worry about making mistakes. If we make a mistake directly with the customer, as long as you communicate and are open, and generally, the customer understands. So I try not to think about mistakes. I try not to worry about them.
Let's make this much more positive then. What do you think has been your biggest achievement to date, and what do you celebrate?
From when we started out, I suppose we opened the estate as a means, I suppose primarily as a means to keep the estate alive, and to try and make it self-sufficient. It was costing a lot of money to maintain, to run, and we wanted that. We wanted the estate to cover itself. And I suppose, from my point of view, the greatest success that of the business now is that not only is the estate looking after itself, we're able to expand, we're able to grow, we're able to do new things to further enhance that, to develop it even further. For example, when we were opening the estate to the public back in when we were getting ready to open to the public in 2017, we discovered in a very overgrown area, we discovered old pathways and ruins, and we set it aside for a while because we were opening to the public. That was the important thing. But during lockdown, we were able to come back to that, and we discovered an old Victorian garden from Lady Clanwilliam's time, and so we have spent the last 2-3 years regenerating that, repairing it where we can't repair it. We'll fix it and replace it appropriately.
And who was Lady Clanwilliams?
Lady Clanwilliam was the owner of the estate. The 5th Earl of Clanwilliam and the 6th Earl of Clanwilliam owned the estate between 1912 and 1979. And they were hugely popular in Ballinhinch, County Down, and Lady Clanwilliam in particular was a very keen gardener. She founded the Ulster Alpine Society. So we've done little things within this. We call it the Lost Garden because it was lost.
That's
we didn't
beautiful.
know about it, and we literally 2 weeks ago we opened that to the public, so being able to do that is probably one of the sort of most satisfying things, is taking something that the estate had, we didn't even know it was there, and sort of reopening it to the public and letting them see something that has been hidden for 70, 80 years.
And where do you find all the information then about where do you know that Lady Clanwilliam was particularly interested in a certain type of plant or another?
We're very fortunate. We have developed relationships right throughout our ownership with local historians. Our architect has been very, very involved from the very beginning, and he points us in the direction of garden historians. So we have a whole range of people that we can call on, all of whom they're so absolutely interested in the subject. So once you get these people started, you literally can't stop
I've listened
them.
to David Maxwell's programme on the BBC, and I know the horticulturalists out there as well, and the history, and there's also so much to be said for, as you say, getting back into nature, and so good for mental well-being too. Do you find that that's a big draw for people?
Definitely. We would have people who they come for a walk every single day. Every single day that we're open, they maybe walk the dog or they walk themselves, rain or shine. They don't have the opportunity at home or where they live, and this gives them that opportunity to get out, clear their head. I do it myself. At least probably 3 nights a week, if not more.
You get your steps in.
I get my steps in, and I'm fortunate that I can do it after hours when there's nobody else about. But it's you would not know you are half a mile from the centre of Ballynahinch. It's in a different world.
And do you pinch yourself sometimes and think, I'm so lucky? This is so beautiful. Tell yourself over and over, David, I'm so lucky.
Driving to work and the sun shining, I drive in and it's how could I want to work in anywhere different? It really is not a bad place to come to work every day.
Could have been in some skyscraper in London or something, but you've got this instead. And it is a family-run business, which is lovely too. And we've said before in this podcast studio, Northern Ireland's really built on those family businesses. Are there still family members involved? Are you all working together?
Yes,
and
we are.
How's that?
Yes,
so tell us who does what.
My mum and dad they're still involved. They I was going to say maybe not so much in the day-to-day operations, although they're heavily involved in the shop. In our retail outlet, like they source what we sell. They go on buying trips or jollies.
Lovely, I like their style.
The big trade show. So they go out. They source what we're selling, and they're in the shop most days of the week, and they're also. If we're doing anything on a bigger scale, a more strategic decisions, they'll definitely still be involved. My brother-in-law Keith is the operations director, so he's here. He's on the estate every day. My wife works in the cafe.
Right.
She started that. She was just covering, she was filling in, and now I can't get her out of it. She loves it. She loves getting out of the house, and to be honest, it has really brought her out of it. Talking to people, meeting people. So she loves that as well. So Jenny works in the cafe. And Keith's wife would assist in when the Christmas shop is being opened. That's really all hands on deck to open that as well. So
So you all work well together as a family.
Yes, most of the time.
Most
of the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, a family business we find it's generally great. It allows we're in communication all day long. Frank communication at times, there's no doubt, but we talk about everything at any time of the day, so it allows us to get things done. we generally don't need to wait weeks to make a decision. We can make a decision within an hour if we really need to.
Get it on the table and let's deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The downside of that, of course, is that, there's a lot of shop talk outside of the working hours when we're supposed to be at a barbecue or supposed to be out somewhere. It'll inevitably turn into shop talk, but that's.
So apart from walking around the estate, what else do you like to do in your precious time off?
I have 2 children, and really most of my time is spent with my children. My little boy is he has autism, and so he just craves things to do. So if I'm not at the trampoline park or walking him through the he loves walking on the estate as well.
I was going to say, it sounds perfect for
yes,
him.
he does. He loves
And
walking.
how old is he?
He is 11.
Oh.
And so he loves walking on the estate. Nothing more than getting his wellies on, jumping into the lake or walking through the river. Or that doesn't stop him.
He just jumps on in there, and you're swimming after him with the.
I try not to have to get in myself, but it's
idyllic, really.
It is absolutely, and my daughter as well. She just loves the outdoors. So she gets on her bike and scoots away off. And
what stage is she?
She is she's 9, so she's a bit younger. But
and do you see them coming into the business as well? Maybe?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Who knows?
Who knows?
What will be will be.
Well, exactly.
It sounds like they have a lovely time.
My a couple of my nieces and nephews would I can see them. They're a bit older. I can see them definitely becoming involved in some way. In fact, my nephew, who's also 11, I think he would like to give up school now to work as a handyman. Anytime there's a handyman on site, he just comes and
I tell you,
helps him.
He'll always be in a job if he goes and learns the trade.
If I can get 2 or 3 trades out of him,
even better.
That would be even better.
You'd be encouraging him. So tell us what else you're doing on the estate then. So you have your weddings, but people can also hire the venue.
Yeah, one of the things that we have built up quite well since COVID is our corporate market, and in particular, the corporate used to the old favourite was the corporate away day for members of staff, but we have offered last year, and we have a couple of more bookings for this year where. It's actually for staff and their families, so they're integrating the family into it's a bonus for the employee to be able to show off to their family where they work or who they work with.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's a nice, instead of being away from the family.
Another thing to go to work.
Exactly.
You involve the family.
We involve them, and that could be, we bouncy castles and outdoor activities and barbecues and, discos and whatever we can plan and whatever you want to do, we can arrange it, but it's aimed at the families rather than just aimed at the employees. So
maybe people could be rethinking their corporate away day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I genuinely believe that's over the next few years that will take off. I think the days of maybe just taking your staff away are over, and there's probably more emphasis now on family inclusion in that.
The final question I put to every guest who sits where you are. The purpose of this podcast, which is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insights into the success of businesses such as the wonderful Montalto Estate. So what advice then would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether that risk is worth taking?
I think the risk is always worth taking.
Yay!
I think it is always worth taking. As for assistance, Invest NI do wonderful things where you can, pick up the phone and talk to somebody.
Did you get a lot of, you got help?
We have had help all along. We were very fortunate when we were starting out. We actually started out ourselves. We didn't go down the Invest NI route because I suppose we felt we knew what we wanted to do, so we just did it. Latterly, we definitely have utilised tourism NI, Invest NI for help, whether it be grant or even just somebody to talk to, or them to point us in the direction of somebody to talk to. The scope of the help that you can get from Tourism NI and that's for us, but Invest NI as well. They have a black book that is to die for, and they're willing to share it with you. So I would always take the risk. It's always worth taking a risk, and I think back to probably my grandfather. He left school at 12 years old, and he just, everything he did was a risk. And he had no education, but he had drive, and he had ideas. And if you have those two things, I think you're always going to succeed.
Absolutely. David, it's been a pleasure to have you in the Public Eye podcast studio today. David Wilson, Managing Director of the stunning Montalto Estate. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see everybody else next time. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, where our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.